Welcome to another Facebook Live show sponsored by the Community Health Center of Niagara, where the goal is to educate and motivate. Community Health Center is a federally qualified health center. Our primary focus is providing access to quality health care regardless of your ability to pay. We have an experienced medical team who understands the healthcare challenges in our community and are committed to providing quality care for all. We provide adult medicine, pediatrics, dentistry, family planning, and behavioral health, and our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We encourage you to experience the power of true partnership in taking care of your health. Call us here at the Health Center at 716-986-9199. My extension is 5315. You can take a COVID test any day of the week. Again, just call that 716-986-919 number, or you can call me as well. We also take walk-ins if you just happen to be in the community and just wanted to stop by and have a COVID test done. For COVID vaccinations or for boosters, call that same number between the hours of 3 and 5. We do them every Friday here at the Health Center from 8:30 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. And that's adults and children. Just a few announcements for you. The Niagara Falls Police Department is hiring. Salary starts at $50,000 a year, up to $77,000. Sign up at City Hall between the dates of July 17th through August 3rd. And for more information, you can call 286-4582. July 16th, the Highland and Garden Avenue Block Club will be hosting a community block party. All are invited, 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the corner of Highland and Garden Avenue. Live gospel music from 2 to 4 and a DJ all day. Free hot dogs, hamburgers, bounce houses, and a lot of things for kids to do. So that's tomorrow, July 16th, the Highland and Garden Avenue Block Club at the corner of Highland and Garden. July 30th, a belated Father's Day men's luncheon will be held at the Doris Jones Resource Center, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., hosted by Owen Steed, the community liaison for the police department, and SGIS, Stanley Mack, sponsored also by North Star Development Corporation. The presenter will be Dr. Adam B. Sumlin and Roswell Park staff. Tuesday, August 2nd, we'll be partnering with the Niagara Falls Police Department, the Block Club Council, the Highland Garden Block Club, and we'll be bringing Crime Night Out to the grounds here at the Community Health Center in Niagara. That will be August 2nd from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Crime Night Out. Kids can come and have some games and different things to do as we do what we have to do all that we can do to stop crime in our communities. Save the date, August 7th through the 13th. That's our National Community Health Center Awareness Week. We have several activities going on that week with our Community Health Center Parade and Community Day. Will be scheduled on Saturday, August 13th, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you're a member of an organization or club that would like to participate, please give me a call. A lot of giveaways and games that will be played on that day. Again, that will be Saturday, August 13th, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And on Saturday, August 20th, Men Standing Strong Together is having a community fun day from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Glut Park. Bounce houses, singing, vendors, something for everybody to do. More information, contact Gloria Dosen at 285-2965. So there's a lot going on in Niagara Falls. Those are just my announcements, but there's so much more going on that we don't have the actual announcements for. The Griffin Manor reunion, Jordan Gardens reunion. They all got something going on this summer. It's summer. It's good to get out and do something, so I encourage you to get out and take advantage of it. This Sunday, there's a jazz event at the Beloved Community, and that's at 5 o'clock. So if you like jazz music, outdoors at the Beloved Community this Sunday, a jazz event will be going on. But we're here with our guest today, with SaladinAllah. This is going to be a very, very good show. Saladin has a lot going on. Saladin is a father, he's an educator, he's a transformational speaker, he's an author. He used to be a basketball player. I don't know if he can still do that anymore.
I can still dunk.
Lacell, he's a Lacell ball player, not a Niagara Falls High School ball player, but a Lacell ball player. Saladin, welcome to our show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Good to have you, man.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Good to have you. We're going to be talking to Saladin, and we're going to be talking about the value of knowing your history, because Saladin has done a lot in knowing his history as well as the history of the city of Niagara Falls. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, where you grew up.
Yeah, so I'm a Niagara Falls native. My parents were Philip Frank and Lois Frank, so I'm part of the Frank family. Our home church was Trinity Baptist Church, and it was under the stewardship or the leadership of Reverend Glenn Raybon. And as like a side note, it wasn't until I got older that I learned a little bit more about some of the background and the journey of Pastor Raybon. And I didn't know that he worked at a circus when he was young.
Yeah.
Like he traveled as different circuses. He had a long history in terms of his journey, which led him ultimately to the pulpit, and, just speaking to that, looking at my life, I'm really just a composite of all of the various different people, such as yourself, people like Mike Hamilton, Knuckles Bradley, Greg Lewis, Reggie McQuarrie, like all of these different mentors, including my parents, that were a part of helping me grow and develop into the man that I am today. So, regardless of the various different things that I do, it's really just the evidence of those who have came before me and the sacrifices and the investment that they've made in me as well as my peers growing up. So,
Okay. I read somewhere where you are described as a supreme master educator. What's unique about your style of education or communication?
Oh man. Well, number one, I have a passion for learning. And I think it's difficult to teach something or to treat a person right if you don't really have a passion and a connection to what it is that you are actually doing, And when I was about 12 years old, my mother, whose background is in social psychology, she gave me a button with a man sitting like this on a rock. And I asked her, what is this? What does this mean? And she said, oh, that is a very famous statue of a man called the Thinker. And she said, that's who you are. You're my thinking child. Right. Wow. So it's something that she saw in me at a very early age. And that is something that's carried through in my life, through everything that I do. And I strive to have a passion for learning. And I strive to learn things well enough where I can teach it to someone, and starting with children, because they're really the ambassadors of our future. So I wouldn't personally call myself like a master teacher or anything like that, because that's when life throws you curveballs and makes you look like a fool. So I never take that type of credit or anything, but I am humbled by the fact that some people can see value in the type of contributions that I make, especially to our youth.
We'll come back to the education piece, but let's talk about the Underground Railroad Heritage Center. Please share the importance the center is to our community.
Oh man, we might have to do a whole different show about that specifically. So a lot of times when people talk about the Underground Railroad, they don't really have any of the stories of the everyday people who were doing the extraordinary things. And whether you're talking about the Underground Railroad, whether you're talking about the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, you always have faces or figureheads or archetypes that represent that movement. So if you talk about the Civil Rights movement, typically people think about Rosa Parks, and they always think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But what about the many other hands who had helped? There were people who opened their homes up to Dr. Martin Luther King and his colleagues, right, who fed them. People don't know their names, but their sacrifice and their willingness to be a part of that movement was just as important, and sometimes even more important than the face of the figurehead that represented that movement. It's the exact same thing with the Underground Railroad. Our city itself has some of the richest Underground Railroad history that this nation has ever seen. And our Underground Railroad Heritage Center not only celebrates that, but creates a safe space for people to learn more, not just about this local history, but the contribution of our people. For example, one of the premier hotels that existed during the 1800s here when the hospitality industry was developing, was known as the Cataract House Hotel. And the head waiter at the time was John Morrison. John Morrison had a colleague that worked on his staff named Lewis Hamilton, who was a waiter that worked at the Cataract House. But Lewis Hamilton, and you know a lot of Hamiltons that live right here in this city,
Yeah.
they may be literally related to this man who made the transition from a waiter at the Cataract House to opening several businesses, one which was an employment agency. So when you had our people traveling here in the 1800s to come to the city of Niagara Falls, he would put ads in the local newspaper for his business. And he was a person that was able to facilitate economic development in our community in the 1800s. And a lot of people don't know about the importance and the role that he played, which wasn't an anomaly or wasn't a singular act. That was a stream of consciousness that was reflected in a lot of our people during that time period. And those stories need to be shared, especially with our younger generation who may not think that you can transition from being a person that was working in the service industry as a waiter to a business owner, where you're putting yourself in a position where now you're able to direct resources to your community to actually empower people. So our Underground Railroad Heritage Center not only celebrates local history, but it tells the story of our people, people of African descent, people who lived here in the city of Niagara Falls and worked here in the city of Niagara Falls that were instrumental in aiding freedom seekers to get across to the Canadian side. And it is everybody in the city of Niagara Falls. If you're a resident here, you get free membership to come to the Heritage Center because it's yours. So it's something that I'm greatly proud of, you know. And as you know, it was over 300 of us that came together to establish this institution. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the most important institutions that we have here, not just in this area, but in this entire region.
Good stuff. Mm-hmm. If a person has never been there to the Heritage Center, tell them what they can expect when they get there.
They can expect to learn more about themselves, and more about themselves in a way where they're learning about everyday people doing extraordinary things, such as Lewis Hamilton and others who lived here at that time. The Heritage Center itself is an experiential micro museum. So it's not a place that you come to and you just look at panels on the wall. You go there and you're immersed in an actual experience. So we have different type of videos that you can check out. We have interactives for smaller children. We even have viewer panels where people who are in a wheelchair or that need wheelchair accessibility, it's inclusive of, you know, our community members who have a disability as well. So you could go there and expect to experience a sense of transformation, because when you go into the space and you learn about some of the stories that existed here at that time, you're really learning about insight into the deeds that people made in the interest of freedom that are still necessary today.
You facilitated a press conference about a year ago down near the falls, marking the original Cataract House Hotel. What's the value in bringing this history back to life?
Oh man! So over, I would say, the last decade and a half, the concept of cultural heritage tourism has become very big across the country. And it's really not just a celebration of local history that's happening where you live, but it's utilizing that as a way to spark economic development. And when you go to places like Sheboygan, Wisconsin, or if you go to places like California or Boston or any of these other different places, a lot of times people travel there for an experience and a local history that only happened in that location. That is one of the richness or the wealth of the type of local history we have here. So in terms of spurring economic development and cultural heritage tourism, the challenge is a lot of times us as a people, as Black people, we may not own the intellectual property, or we may not own the actual stories and the history. You may have people coming from other places who are taking advantage of the cultural heritage tourism and telling our own story back to us, but it's not empowering our actual communities. You know, one of my experiences, I remember I was on 125th Street in Harlem one time, and I see a bus pull up with tourists. They get off the bus and there's a tour guide, and they're pointing out the Apollo Theater, and they're pointing out all of these different important landmarks and stories that are connected to experiences that happen in Harlem, but they're just walking right by the Harlem residents like they don't even exist. But these are the people who created the culture. So you have to honor that and respect the fact that this is something that needs to belong to the community. And not only with the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center in terms of our community having ownership of that, but any type of local history that we have here, it is a platform for economic development. And it's important that we have control over the narrative, because these are our stories. And if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell your stories, and you may not like what they have to say about you.
Right, right.
You know?
Yeah, there was a news story. When you talk about stories, there was a news story a while back entitled "The Man Behind Uncle Tom's Cabin."
Yes.
You know, it was on I think it was Channel 2 News, and as they showed the picture, the significance of your inclusion in that news story.
Yes.
So talk about that.
Yeah. So back in the 1850s, a woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe published one of the most famous novels of the 19th century. Some even said that this novel is the wick that ignited the Civil War in this country. And that book was called Uncle Tom's Cabin. When that book came out, it sold hundreds of thousands of copies. And she got a lot of negative backlash from the publishing of that novel, because it exposed the system of slavery in a way that many people were not aware of. So a lot of people were embarrassed. Some people were saying that she was not telling the truth because it was a novel. So copyright laws are not the same as they are now as they were back then. So you had other people publishing books and putting narratives out, writing editorials in newspapers, striving to discredit her. So she wrote a second book called The Key to Uncle Tom's Cabin. And in that book, she cited all of her references, where she did her research. And one of the things that she talked about in that book is there was another book that was circulating abolitionist reading circles, and it was the biography of life of a man named Josiah Henson. And she used his life experience as the basis for her story, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Josiah Henson is my third great grandfather. So Josiah Henson, he was born enslaved in Charles County, Maryland in 1789. And it wasn't until he reached the age of 41 that he eventually decided to escape. So Josiah Henson will be considered what is known as a forerunner of the Underground Railroad. I think when people think about the Underground Railroad, they may think of a network already being in place, but it required people to make those connections, to get to the point where they became conductors and to establish stations of the Underground Railroad. So he was a part of establishing that initial network. To put it in context, when he escaped in September of 1830 from the South to come up here to Western New York, Harriet Tubman's name was Araminta at the time, and she was still a teenager on a plantation. So he took his entire family on that journey. 2 of his children out of 4 were so small he had to carry him in a knapsack on his back. And he left from Owensboro, Kentucky, walked over 450 miles up into Ohio, and eventually he was able to make it to Sandusky, where he boarded a ship called the Schooner Commerce that was captained by a man named John Burnham, who took him up to Buffalo, New York, another 225 miles. And he crossed at the foot of Ferry, which is Broderick Park, in October 28, 1830, to make it over to the Canadian side. And that's just the short part of his story. But a couple of generations later, he had family that lived in St. Catharines, in a community that was known as Colored Village. And that's where my grandmother, Inez Dorsey Frank, was born, in St. Catharines. And she moved over here into the United States in 1925. So part of our family was gone out of this country for 100 years until my grandmother was born and moved over here, lived right on Garden Avenue, went to Emmanuel Baptist Church, and she is one of the direct descendants of Josiah Henson. Through her, my father, Philip Frank, was born. My father has several children, And I would say I'm the most attractive and probably intelligent of the children of the Father. There's no one here right now to debate that. You know?
Good stuff.
So
Good
I would
stuff.
say growing up, knowing part of those stories,
Yeah.
it gave me a sense of pride and identity and esteem that I may have not seen in others. And the reality of it is we may not have a connection to a story of the Underground Railroad, but all of us have a story of our people making a journey. And it doesn't have to be 100 years ago. Our own parents have stories of their journeys. And it's important to share that with your children because it equips them with not only the insight to be able to persevere and to meet challenges that you may have met 25 years ago, but it also gives them greater insight into their own infinite potential to persevere.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point. So as you make that point, what kind of advice can you give our young men who may be just starting out?
One of the things that I've learned just in my experience is it's important to meet people where they are. I would be a bad plumber if somebody contacted me and just told me what was going on in their house, and then I just showed up at their house with my tools and start pulling pipes apart. You have to do an effective needs assessment first. Find out what it is. You may find out they don't need no plumber. They need a carpenter or an electrician. That's not your job.
Yeah.
But a lot of us sometimes in our, zealousness in order to teach and reach people, we forget that important step in terms of meeting people where they are and being a student first and learning what they need. So I strive to reach people where they are, learning more about them first, and then seeing if I have the capacity to be able to reach them. I may have brothers or sisters or somebody in a professional circle that is more qualified to reach them. But if I don't build that relationship first and find out where they're at in life, I may not know and do the most effective needs assessment on where to reach them. So that's what I would encourage anybody to do. Before you go out and say what a person needs and wants, find out first and get a sense of a surety so that you're not wasting your time either and you're not wasting their time. Right. We're at an age where, especially with the exponential growth of technology and things appear to be moving so fast, we're not in the space right now where we have the luxury of just losing time and practicing and trying things out. We have to be effective with our time and how we reach people and how we're going to direct our resources. And that, in my experience, has been a very important part of it. You got to strive to meet people where they are. And in order to do that, you got to get to know folks,
You are also involved in starting your own school.
Yes.
So tell us about the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters.
Yeah. So the story starts all the way back 2 decades ago when I woke up one morning and I wanted to volunteer my time, and I just wanted to do something which impacted the youth in our community. And I started actually volunteering at the resource center. I got an opportunity. Eric was there. He gave me an opportunity to come in every Wednesday evening for an hour and a half. And I just wanted to help the youth with homework help, tutor them. I wanted to just be present. I wanted to do something. And from there, I got a lot of other different type of opportunities because people saw where my heart was at. I wasn't doing this for money, for a title or position. I saw a need and people recognized that need. And from there, I started to get opportunities to do other different programs, create my own programs. Eventually, I started teaching early childhood development through the housing authority. And then I transitioned from there into the school district. But my life has been primarily focused on the youth for the last 20 years. And in the process, I've always strived to create projects, programs, and initiatives that can teach youth principles and values that a lot of times our grandparents have been teaching us. But because a lot of our elders are not here anymore, some of those principles and values kind of get lost. Mm-hmm. So I started to do things like creating like an animation series a reading time animation series to promote literacy for our youth that they can have access to. And the books that I utilize are sold at our Underground Railroad Heritage Center, but they also help facilitate conversations around difficult topics that parents and guardians may find too much of a gap to engage their children upon. But if you're reading a book about a topic like police brutality, or a topic about inclusion, or about history, that's a great segue to have certain type of conversations with your younger people. So I started to create different type of projects, programs, and initiatives, and it got to the point where I had the vision to create a community learning center, which is based upon early childhood development, but also offers after school programming for children in their adolescence. I've been doing this for years, but now I was given the opportunity to create a brick and mortar site as an institution, and I call it the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters, based upon the concept of the X-Men. So the X-Men had a school for gifted youngsters, and the elder mutants, or those who were gifted, were mentors to the younger ones who were just learning to develop and control their powers. So it's the exact same way that I see the youth here. A lot of them are indigo children in such a way where they all have gifts, but unfortunately sometimes adults may not strive to draw those gifts out of them and set them on a trajectory in life where they can fulfill their purpose and be a contribution to society. So I wanted to create that type of space where I can help youth growth and develop. And that is the true mission of the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters. I'm in the process now of completing my renovations so that I can submit my application for my program and to have my fire and safety inspection done. And I'm definitely looking forward to not just only creating this space, but demonstrating the capacity for others to replicate this in their communities around the country.
If why don't you share your location, and if someone wants to support your school, how they can make contact?
So the location of it is on Depot Avenue here in Niagara Falls, and it is in a community that has been designated an early childhood desert. So you're familiar with,
right,
food deserts and food swamps in our communities, but we also have early childhood learning deserts where you have children that don't have access to early childhood learning resources. And that creates a huge disparity amongst children that have all of the resources in the world right at their fingertips. Right. How can you compete with those children? And, I wanted to make sure that I bring a level of equity to our community. And one way that people can actually support is if they just go to Google and they put in Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters. It's not difficult to find me. I'm probably one of the first or the second websites that come up, and people can learn more about what they're actually supporting too. And that's something that I also advocate, because you got a lot of people that say, I'm doing this, I got this idea, and people support it. And it's unfair to support someone's idea when you can support your own ideas. But I want people to know what it is that they're actually investing in.
If you can put one word together, what would you say your end goal is for the school in one word?
That's a good question. Citizenry.
Okay.
Citizenry. And I say that because when you look at a lot of our youth today, a lot of our youth don't have that sense of citizenry or understanding their role and responsibility in contributing to the society around them. A lot of people have a mindset of what they want to get out of things or what they want to take. Even if you just ask the person a random question about a relationship, the first thing that a person is usually going to say is what they want out of somebody in a relationship. If you look at it in a religious context, you ask a person about going to a certain house of worship, one of the first things that they're going to talk about is what they want God to do for them. They're not talking about what they're willing to give, what they have the capacity to give, or what type of sacrifices that they're willing to make. And that's problematic because you have people who are growing up not realizing that what you see in your community, what you see in your city is evidence of what you are willing and able to do or not do. And we need children to start understanding that this is your community.
Right.
You know, we all need to take responsibility for the things that are going on.
This is some good stuff. We're talking to SaladinAllah. We're going to spend a few more minutes with them. I know our time is running out. I just want to hit you with two questions. One question is, I know you're a member of the Human Rights Commission, and would you say things are better when it comes to human rights and discrimination today?
Wow. It depends on what news channel you watch. You know,
Yeah.
when you're considering like just the potential of social economic engineering and people putting out narratives of progress and non-progress, I think that people really need to evaluate and look within themselves and to see what they're actually doing. Because if you're basing that upon the narrative that others want to share, it may seem like there's no progress being made. But then on the other hand, people may share a narrative that it looks like it's all the progress in the world. You know, Denzel Washington once said that if you don't pay attention to the news, you're uninformed. But if you do pay attention to the news, you're misinformed. So what is it you're gonna do? You know? So I would say, because I'm working with youth all of the time, I see growth and I see potential and I see progress through their eyes. Now, if I'm around a lot of adults, I may get a totally different perspective because some of them may not have hope.
Yeah. Good stuff. He's SaladinAllah. He's published 16 books. 16 books he published. Which one stands out most in your mind?
Yeah. So that I published 16 books probably a few years ago. I'm up to like 23 books now.
Okay.
But even more important than that, I've helped more than 23 people or more than 24 people self-publish. So I'm more proud of that, being able to put people in a position to be able to share their stories and perspectives.
Right.
But in regards to just some of the books that I've written, I always look at literacy and literature as a challenge. So I have a novel that I've written about relationships, but then I also have a book of poetry and short stories. I have a book about transactional analysis. It's a psychology book, and that's part of what I get from my mother's side of the family. But then I also have a book called Eyes Wide Shut, The Science of Secret Societies, because a lot of times people are interested in stuff about the Illuminati or the Freemasons or some of these other different secretive groups. So I wrote a book specifically about that so that people could understand how special interest groups operate. So I would say if a person was interested in supporting one of my books, they may be interested in a book that I've written called Games, and that's the psychology book, or Eyes Wide Shut, The Science of Secret Societies.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ali, we thank you, man. This has been a great show. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Make sure you like and share this. A lot of great information that's came out of the show. So make sure you like and share the conversations that we had. I'm going to give you a chance to make a closing comment before we shut down.
Yes. First, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. A lot of the things that I've shared, I'm kind of beneath the radar. I know sometimes people may see me every now and then on television or see some of the things that I'm doing around the community, but I usually don't speak about the things that I'm doing. I don't self-profess like that, And
I know, because I was impressed when I read all the things that you're doing, because I see you all the time, and wasn't aware that you was involved at that, that heavy into some of the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that also speaks to the power of real work and activity. That it's not things that you see. It's not on a billboard sign. It's not an awning. I mean, when you were in city council at that time, the most important work that you did is work that people didn't know about.
Right.
They got to find out later down the line, like, oh, he did that. He made sure that this happened. He made sure that happened. But it's not stuff that you self-profess or that you talk about externally, because really the actual work that is most important are those activities that happen when no one's watching. Right. When the camera's not on, when people are not recording it. But this is also what helps move not only our community and our people forward, with the society as well. So I thank you for just this opportunity, this type of work that you're continuing to do, and others who are doing the important work as well.
Thank you again for watching the Community Health Center Niagara's live broadcast. I'm your host, Charles Walker. My co-host, Stephanie Coward, she's outside the door there. We appreciate SaladinAllah. The cameras are on, so now you get a chance to really know what SaladinAllah is doing in our community, and he's making Niagara Falls proud. Thank you for watching. God bless.